Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers was the worst kept secret in the NFL all offseason. But we had to just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. But finally, as expected, Rodgers is off to Pittsburgh. The Steelers have continued to just swim in mediocrity, never being actually bad or even dipping under 500, but haven't had legitimate success since Ben Roethlisberger retired. Can Rodgers actually change that? Well, he's 41 years old, and his best days appear to be gone. But maybe there is some real hope after all. The way Aaron Rodgers' performance last year is viewed, I think really does depend on who you talk to. And that's fair. There is a lot of negativity that is deserved. That is not only due to the expectations that came with him going to the Jets, but is also based on what the Jets had to give up to get him. After 18 years with the Packers, the Jets went all in on getting him. Rodgers and a 5th-round pick were sent to the Jets, and the Packers got a 1st-round pick swap, a 2nd, 6th, and a conditional 2nd-round pick. Now, that 2nd-round pick, it would have turned into a 1st-round pick if Rodgers played just 65% of the Jets' snaps. That's not a crazy number at all, but obviously, he didn't. He ruptured his Achilles on the 4th snap with his new team and missed the rest of the 2023 season. There was that iconic, now meme, of Rodgers running out with the American flag at MetLife. And look, I was pumped for him to play for the Jets and see what that team could be like with good quarterback play. But instead, it was right back to Zach Wilson, which is what they were trying to avoid in the first place by getting Rodgers. There was a lot of optimism that maybe Rodgers could come back, especially for the playoffs, but that was probably a bit crazy. Rodgers just thought he could. He had a different kind of surgery. He had this internal brace put in his Achilles with kind of being able to get back sooner, but it didn't matter. The Jets went 7-10. They weren't in the playoffs anyways. And then Rodgers did come back for 2024, and the Jets decided to run it back one more time, with Robert Saleh getting one more chance at head coach and Joe Douglas at general manager. The thought was, with Rodgers back, that they should be improved, right? No, they weren't. In week 1, Rodgers finally got a real full start with the Jets for the first time, but it was a 32-19 loss to the 49ers. The Jets beat the Titans on the road 24-17 in week 2 for Rodgers' first ever win as a Jet. He threw for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Rodgers picked up his first home win against the Patriots the next week, 24-3, as he passed for 281 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Jets were 2-1, granted against some pretty bad teams, but they were 2-1. The only loss came to the defending NFC champions. There was reason to believe, maybe. Then their real colors came out. They lost a gross 10-9 game to the Broncos in week 4, and then after a 23-17 loss to the Vikings in week 5 to fall to 2-3, that was enough. Robert Saleh was fired. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich took over interim duties, and really nothing changed. The Jets still sucked, and Ulbrich dropped his first 3 games in charge to the Bills, Steelers, and Patriots. His first win was in week 9, beating the Texans 21-13 behind 211 yards and 3 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers. Now, that wasn't just the first win for Jeff Ulbrich as the interim. It was actually the first and only one of just 3 games that Davante Adams won with the Jets. The Jets, for whatever reason, thought it would be a good idea to trade a 3rd-round pick to the Raiders to get Adams and put him back together with Rodgers. If Davante was a 1st or 2nd team All-Pro or was on the roster for the AFC Championship or Super Bowl, then that would have turned into a 2nd-round pick. That obviously didn't happen, but it was a win. Perhaps the Jets were turning over a new leaf. They weren't. They lost to the Cardinals and Colts to sit at 3-8 going into a Week 12 bye. Joe Douglas got fired, and senior personnel advisor Phil Savage became the interim. The Jets lost to the Seahawks and Dolphins right out of the bye to sit at 3-10. The Jets did end up beating the Jaguars before losing back-to-back to the Rams and Bills, and then ended the season with a win against the Dolphins. A brutal 5-12 season. Disappointing would be quite the understatement. The pieces were there, but the play and the coaching just wasn't. Rodgers did play at every game. He threw for 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions with a 90 90.5 passer rating. Now that's solid numbers for some quarterbacks, but not for Aaron Rodgers. There were some solid options he did have there on that offense that were supposed to be really fun to watch with Aaron Rodgers, and were at certain times. Garrett Wilson was the big one. He had 101 catches for 1,104 yards and 7 touchdowns. Devontae had 67 catches for 854 yards, 7 touchdowns in 11 games after getting traded there. Then Rodgers' old buddy, Alan Lazard, who we've just never been able to escape from out Aaron Rodgers, had 37 receptions for 530 yards and 6 touchdowns. Tyler Conklin had a good year at tight end with 449 yards and 4 touchdowns on 51 catches. Then Breece Hall kind of just did it all. He had 57 catches, 483 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also rushed for 876 yards and 5 touchdowns on 209 carries. The Jets' offensive line wasn't very good, but it wasn't awful. It was very middle of the pack, and the defense was pretty much the same, but was definitely expected to be better. So Rodgers obviously didn't have the success he wanted to last year. That leaves the question, is he actually in a better position now with the Steelers? Last year was a new start for the Steelers. You know, after Big Ben retired, Kenny Pickett was taken in the first round. It was pretty clearly not the long-term solution at quarterback. So they moved on and had a bizarre mix of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. Wilson was great at one time and is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but it's been a long time. Fields has shown flashes, but not actually been good enough. The fun bunch somehow managed to go 10-7 and sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, where Pittsburgh ended up losing to the Ravens 28-14. Still, it's actually pretty damn impressive they even got to the playoffs. It really all came back to the defense that just played really well, but there were some good offensive pieces. Najee Harris slugged out another 1,000-yard season at running back. George Pickens was the top receiver with 900 yards, but now those guys aren't even there. The offense looks very different with Rodgers coming in. Pickens and a 6th-rounder was sent to the Cowboys for a 3rd and a 5th. I guess the Steelers just really didn't want to have 3 headaches on the same offense with Rodgers, and after trading for DK Metcalf, he got traded for a 2nd-round pick along with pick swaps in the 6th and 7th rounds. He got a 5-year, $150 million extension. Now, he's been a true number 1. He was kind of losing out to Jackson Smith and Jigba there, though, and they needed to move on. He hasn't had less than 900 yards in a season in his 6-year career. He's the one with Robert Woods signing a 1-year deal to come in and help. He had a couple down years in Houston. Then Calvin Austin is still in Pittsburgh too, and so is touchdown machine Pat Freiermuth at tight end, and Jalen Warren now slides in as the number 1 running back. There are some good weapons there for sure, but the concern is definitely the offensive line. There have been some very, very real efforts to try to fix the line. 3 of the expected starters were literally drafted last year. Right tackle Troy Fatano in the 1st, center Zach Frazier in the 2nd, and right guard Mason McCormick in the 4th. Then left guard Isaac Suamalo signed in 2023 after he played for the Eagles, and Broderick Jones was a 1st-round pick in 2023. There has been a lot of movement and just trying to get better, but we'll see. It's obviously hard to believe it's a better spot for Rodgers, but there is one big thing in the good news. The coaching is absolutely better with Mike Tomlin, and that alone should make a huge difference. Now, one thing is for sure, the old Aaron Rodgers is gone. The Steelers have signed an Aaron Rodgers that I think could help them win and succeed to a certain degree, but not a guy who's firing on all cylinders and won 4 MVPs with the Packers. It's been a minute, he's 41. There's a real conversation to be had of whether or not he even plays every game for the Steelers. They did sign Mason Rudolph, who already knows what it's like to play in Pittsburgh. There also just isn't a huge belief in offensive coordinator Arthur Smith from the general public, but I think we should just wait and see. He did fail as a head coach for the Falcons, but he did wonders with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry when he was the Titans OC. And even current day Rodgers, I think is pretty close to that prime Tanny, if I'm being honest. Even if everything goes as well as it can for the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, the reality is he isn't lifting a Lombardi trophy. I think we can say that for certain, but I do think that he can put together a productive season, make the playoffs, and retire after the year after a respectable performance. And the sour taste of the Jets kind of out of his mouth at that point. Bad organizations are always bad. The Jets were a good example. The Steelers are a significantly better spot to kind of just ascend into a retirement home. I think there's a good chance this is the end for Rodgers, and so I'd say just soak it all in. He was and is one of the greatest quarterbacks I've watched in my entire life. So don't miss the last ride if this is it.